There are days when heaven seems silent, and then there are days when it whispers so loudly that even the heart trembles. October 8th, 2025, a day written in eternity long before our clocks began to tick. I was told one thing: open it, tell no one. And in that command, I found the weight of faith, the kind that demands trust beyond understanding. For when God speaks, it's not always for the world to hear, but for the soul to awaken. Today, I will not reveal what was said, but I will share what it changed. Everything. It was in the quiet hour before dawn that the whisper came. Not through sound, but through a stillness that seemed to still even time itself. The air was heavy with something unseen, something ancient, as though the world itself held its breath. The words were not thunder, nor vision, nor dream. They came in a pulse of knowing, simple yet unshakable. Open it. Tell no one. For a moment, everything inside me resisted. The human heart always trembles before mystery. We crave clarity, we hunger for witness, we want to share what we've seen. But there are moments when heaven locks the tongue, not out of cruelty, but out of purpose. What is sacred cannot be shouted from rooftops. It must be carried, guarded, and lived. So I opened it. And what was inside was not gold, nor message, nor prophecy. It was understanding, a revelation that the greatest truths are never written in ink but in experience. To open what God places before you is not to unveil something to the world, but to uncover something within yourself. And when he says tell no one, it is not secrecy, it is sanctity. The silence becomes part of the message. The stillness becomes the testimony. It is in what you do after revelation, not what you say about it, that truth begins to breathe. I realized then that obedience is not always grand. Sometimes it is quiet, almost invisible. Faith is not the act of declaring belief. It is the art of listening when you want to speak, of waiting when you want to move, of trusting when there is no proof. Every command from above carries a weight of choice, to obey even when no one sees, even when no one knows. Because the unseen test is the truest one. What good is faith that depends on applause? What value has obedience that thrives only under light? The real sanctity lies in what the soul does when only heaven is watching. There is something divine in secrecy, not deceit, but devotion. When God tells you to keep something, it's not because he wants to hide truth from the world, but because he's preparing you to hold it with strength. A seed must be buried before it becomes a tree. A promise must be concealed before it can be fulfilled. The greatest works of the divine begin in hidden places, beneath the soil, behind the veil, within the heart. Silence, therefore, is not absence. It is gestation. It is creation forming in the dark, waiting for the appointed hour to emerge. And yet, silence is not easy. The human heart aches to share what it holds, but not everything sacred can survive exposure. Some fires die when they are spoken too soon. Some truths crumble when they are handled by unready hands. So, I learned to carry the word without declaring it, to walk with the secret without fear, to let obedience be my only voice. It was then I began to see that revelation is not a message to the mind. It is an awakening of the soul. When God says open it, he is inviting you to confront what you've buried, what you've feared, what you've denied. And when he says tell no one, he is asking you to walk by faith, not validation. There was no lightning that day, no crowd, no spectacle. Only an ordinary morning dressed in extraordinary meaning. Every sound felt sharper, every breath more deliberate. The world had not changed, but I had. I had seen what it meant to trust without understanding, to hold without speaking, to believe without evidence. That is the quiet revolution of the spirit, to obey even when the mind trembles, to open what you do not understand, and to guard it because it is not yet time. Every divine encounter carries a paradox. God gives, yet he withholds. He reveals, yet he veils. He commands, yet he invites. This is not confusion, it is craftsmanship. He molds the heart through tension. The waiting strengthens faith. The silence polishes humility. The secrecy shapes purity. To tell no one is not to be voiceless, it is to let your life become the voice. What you live will speak more loudly than what you reveal. Some truths are not meant to be told. They are meant to be shown through endurance, compassion, and unwavering faith. The test of October 8th was not about the object I opened. It was about the obedience I learned. It was about surrendering my desire to be understood in exchange for the privilege of being entrusted. The words echoed again in my heart. Open it. Tell no one. Each time they meant something deeper. Open the possibilities before you, but don't boast of them. Open your heart to what's divine, but don't rush to define it. Open your purpose, but let it unfold in silence, because when the divine hand moves, it does not need your announcement. It needs your alignment. And so, the journey became quieter, but fuller. The less I spoke, the more I understood. The less I tried to prove, the more I saw proof unfolding. The silence began to sink. I began to realize that revelation without humility becomes corruption, but revelation carried in reverence becomes transformation. The world celebrates noise, but heaven works in whispers. It was in that whisper that I finally grasped what faith truly is. Not belief in what you see, but fidelity to what you cannot share. The secret itself became sacred space, and I became its keeper. There are moments when you must walk alone, not because the path is empty, but because the lesson is meant for you alone. Isolation in obedience is not punishment. It is preparation. Every silent act of faith shapes the strength to handle what comes next. The voice that once said open it is still the voice that guides me, quietly, through every crossroad, every decision, every storm. It is not a command I fear, but one I trust. Because sometimes, to guard what's holy is the highest form of worship. And in that silence, something eternal is always speaking. There are moments in life when silence becomes heavier than words, when you are entrusted with something not to share, but to carry. That is the weight of divine secrecy, a burden that refines rather than breaks. When God entrusts you with silence, He is not withholding from you. He is shaping you. The human heart naturally seeks expression. We long to be understood, to declare what we've seen, to justify what we've felt. Yet, there are times when revelation is meant to rest inside you like a seed in winter, waiting for the right season to bloom. The test is not in understanding why, but in trusting the one who gave the command. Secrecy is not emptiness, it is sacred stewardship. It is the art of carrying light within darkness, without needing to prove its glow. Many will never understand what it feels like to bear something invisible yet immense. A truth too pure for explanation. But that's what makes it holy. The silence demanded by faith is not the silence of fear, but the silence of strength. It is the pause between divine intention and human comprehension. When you are told, tell no one, it is not to isolate you, but to prepare you, because not everyone can receive what you have been shown. The truth you carry may not yet be ready for the ears of the world, and the world may not yet be ready for it either. So God covers it, and you, in silence. The hiddenness becomes your altar, and the waiting your worship. You learn that real faith is not proven in what you reveal, but in what you restrain. There is a sacred loneliness in obedience. You walk through days when you cannot explain why you're doing what you're doing. When others question your quiet, when they cannot see the reason behind your restraint. But the silence is not for them. It's for you. It's the space where faith matures, where doubt is burned away, where trust is purified. To keep what is divine untouched by the noise of the world is to honor the one who gave it. You begin to understand that secrecy is not about concealment. It's about consecration. And though the silence may ache, it becomes the forge of your spirit. You learn to hold truth without the need to broadcast it, to protect revelation as you would a fragile flame in the wind. That's the test of faith, not to shout your obedience, but to live it quietly, to walk through the unknown, carrying something unseen and still believe it matters. Because one day, the very silence that felt like weight will become your witness. The world will see the fruit of what you carried in secret, and you will know the test was never about keeping quiet. It was about keeping faithful. There is a paradox that humbles every soul that dares to listen. that the hand which moves the stars often moves in silence. It does not roar like a storm. It breathes like wind through unseen branches. The greatest works of heaven are not always wrapped in spectacle, nor announced with lightning or sound. They unfold quietly, almost secretly, in ways only discerned when looking backward through the tapestry of time. The unseen hand, though invisible, is louder than thunder, not in volume, but in meaning. It speaks through alignment, through timing, through those strange coincidences that are not coincidences at all. It speaks through peace that makes no sense, through endurance that defies logic, through the unshakable knowing that someone, is orchestrating every unseen thread. We live in a world obsessed with evidence, where only what can be touched or proven is called real. Yet faith is not built upon sight. It is the art of trusting the invisible. The unseen hand is not weak because it hides. It hides because it is holy. It chooses mystery over display because truth, when forced, loses its beauty. Think of a seed planted deep beneath the soil. It is unseen, untouched by the eye, but its silence is not stillness. Inside it, life is breaking open, roots are being written into the earth, and destiny is unfolding one molecule at a time. That's how the divine hand works, quietly, beneath the noise of human understanding, moving mountains molecule by molecule until the day it chooses to bloom. There were moments after that day, October 8th, when I questioned everything. I wondered if I had imagined it, if the whisper had been nothing more than a passing thought, if obedience had made me a fool. The world looked unchanged, and silence stretched like a long, unending night. But I began to notice something subtle, a rhythm behind the stillness. Circumstances began to align with precision no human hand could arrange. Paths that had been closed began to open softly, almost shyly, as if testing whether I was paying attention. People I needed to meet appeared by chance. Doors I had stopped knocking on swung open without sound, and I understood. The unseen hand was moving, not to be seen, but to be trusted. We mistake quietness for absence, but absence is a myth in the vocabulary of God. The unseen hand is not a distant force. It is near as breath, weaving through every decision, every delay, every disappointment. Thunder may announce power, but it fades. The unseen hand sustains it. Thunder shakes the air. The hand that causes it shapes eternity. The loud things pass, applause, noise, attention, but the quiet things remain. It is in silence that the deepest transformations take place. The heart does not grow under the sound of drums. It grows in stillness, in surrender, in unseen obedience. Every human life is a field being cultivated by an invisible gardener. You may not see his hand at work, but you will feel the weight of his touch in the turning of seasons. There are days when you are pruned, cut back, broken, stripped of things you thought were essential. And there are days when you are watered, when grace pours like sunlight through clouded skies. Both are the movements of the same hand. To trust it is to stop demanding explanation and start recognizing design. Faith is not built on proof. It is built on patterns, on those moments that whisper, "This cannot be chance." The unseen hand is never random. It is rhythmic. It moves through time like music, and only those who are still enough can hear its melody. It is easy to believe in God when thunder rolls, when miracles announce themselves in blazing light. But the truest faith is forged when nothing seems to happen, when heaven is quiet, when the only evidence you have is the persistence of your own belief. The unseen hand moves in the shadows of silence, and those shadows are not empty. They are pregnant with purpose. Every delay hides direction. Every loss carries preparation. Every closed door is protection written in disguise. When you start to see this, fear loses its voice, and patience becomes worship, because what looks like stillness is not stagnation. It is strategy. I have come to see that the unseen hand does not simply act in the world. It acts within us. It moves hearts, rearranges desires, stirs courage, and awakens love. It whispers in the conscience when the noise of temptation grows loud. It strengthens you in weakness and humbles you in strength. It allows storms not to destroy you, but to reveal you. The unseen hand is the sculptor, and we are the marble, unaware of the masterpiece taking shape beneath each strike. Sometimes, what feels like loss is simply the chisel's touch, carving away everything that is not you, until what remains is something closer to truth. And yet, the unseen hand asks for patience, a virtue that feels like surrender and often hurts like heartbreak. You cannot rush what you cannot see. You cannot command what you do not comprehend. You can only trust that the one who hides his work is not hiding from you, but for you. If he showed you everything, faith would have no purpose. It is in not knowing that we learn to know him. It is in silence that we learn to listen. It is in waiting that we learn to walk. That is why the unseen hand moves quietly, because it is more concerned with shaping your soul than impressing your senses. Sometimes, we pray for thunder and miss the whisper. We demand proof and overlook presence. We want God to move loudly, to part seas, to shake heavens, but he often moves subtly within the fabric of our ordinary lives. He moves through the delay that teaches patience, through the loss that creates gratitude, through the unanswered question that draws you closer to his will. The unseen hand may not always give explanations, but it never fails to give evidence. Small, precise, sacred patterns that only make sense in hindsight. That is how heaven writes its testimony. Not in fireworks, but in fingerprints. There comes a moment when you stop asking, "Where is God?" and start realizing, he's been here all along. That's when silence turns to revelation. You look back at every wrong turn, every confusion, every delay, and suddenly it all fits. The places that hurt most become the places that taught you trust. The moments that felt abandoned become the ones where you grew. You realize the unseen hand was never late, it was always exact. Every detour was direction, disguised as delay. Every no was a protection against a lesser yes. The invisible had always been the most real, and once you've seen it, truly seen it, you cannot unsee it. You begin to notice the divine fingerprints on every detail of your life. You stop fearing silence because you know it is full. You stop doubting the unseen because you've learned it speaks truer than thunder. You begin to understand that faith is not the absence of evidence, but the awareness of unseen orchestration. Every breath becomes a sermon. Every sunrise becomes a signature. Every heartbeat becomes proof that something greater is moving beneath the surface of things. The unseen hand moves in ways that defy explanation yet demand reverence. It is the quiet force that steadies your path, the soft nudge that changes your course, the invisible thread that connects your pain to your purpose. It is in the coincidence that saves your day, the closed door that spared your soul, the small mercy that seemed random but wasn't. You start to see how every movement, even the painful ones, form part of a larger, loving design. The thunder may make headlines, but the unseen hand writes history, and it writes not with haste, but with holiness. So when you hear nothing, believe everything. When heaven is silent, assume it is speaking in a language deeper than sound. The unseen hand is still moving. Through the dark, through your doubts, through every quiet act of obedience. And though it moves without noise, its echoes reshape eternity. The thunder fades, the whisper remains, and in the end, you will look back and realize that what seemed hidden was the most powerful movement of all. The unseen hand that never stopped working, never stopped guiding, never stopped loving, even when you could not see it. There are moments when the distance between what you understand and what you are asked to do feels infinite. The command comes quietly. It does not explain itself. It does not soften its edges. It simply stands before you like a door half open, whispering walk through. And in that moment, every instinct in you hesitates. Fear is loud, logic is louder. But trust is the whisper that remains. It doesn't erase fear, it simply refuses to obey it. That is the essence of obedience. Not the absence of trembling, but the courage to move while trembling. Trust becomes the bridge between what you fear and what you are called to do. It is invisible under your feet, but it holds, always. When God calls you into something unknown, he rarely hands you a map. Instead, he gives you a word, a single, steady promise that feels too small to carry the weight of your doubt. And yet, that word is enough. You take one step, and the bridge appears beneath it. Not before, not all at once, but as you move. That is how divine trust works. Revelation follows obedience, not the other way around. We want certainty before we act, but heaven demands faith before it reveals. The human heart wants to see the full bridge before crossing the first plank. But trust says, I will step because he said so. That step is not blind. It is the most honest sight a soul can have, seeing not with eyes, but with belief. Fear will always whisper reasons to stay where you are. It will tell you that obedience is risk, that surrender is foolish, that silence means abandonment. But trust answers differently. Trust says the silence is not a void. It's a voice that requires deeper hearing. Trust says, if he led me here, he is already waiting on the other side. The bridge is fragile to the mind, but unbreakable to the spirit. You cannot reason your way across it, you can only walk. That walk is what transforms you, because obedience without trust is empty ritual. But obedience built on trust becomes worship. There were nights after the command, open it, tell no one, when I questioned everything. I wanted clarity, I wanted assurance, I wanted something tangible to hold. But trust doesn't deal in guarantees, it deals in presence. It doesn't promise comfort, it promises companionship. I learned that God's silence is not distance. It's nearness in a form you don't yet recognize. Trust taught me to stop demanding answers and start resting in alignment. It whispered, you don't have to know the why when you already know the who. Trust doesn't come naturally. It grows through tension. You don't learn it in peace. You learn it in uncertainty. It's born in those long stretches where nothing makes sense, yet you choose to believe anyway. It's built in the waiting room between prayer and fulfillment, in the ache between hope and manifestation. Each act of obedience becomes a plank in the bridge, each moment of surrender another beam of strength. The more you walk, the stronger it gets, and one day, you look back and realize you're standing in a place you once feared to imagine, carried entirely by what you couldn't see. There's beauty in the simplicity of trust. It doesn't argue, it doesn't demand proof, it doesn't need validation. It just says yes. It's the quietest and strongest word in the vocabulary of faith. That yes may tremble, it may break, but even when whispered, it echoes through heaven. Because God doesn't measure the volume of your faith, He measures its direction. Every hesitant yes builds a bridge where none existed. Every surrendered yes becomes the path that carries you from fear to freedom. In truth, fear and obedience will always coexist. Fear is not the enemy of faith, it's the context that gives it meaning. Without fear, obedience would require no courage. Without uncertainty, trust would have no depth. The bridge exists because there is a gap. The gap between what you know and what you are called to do. It is not a flaw in your journey. It is the very place where divinity meets humanity. The bridge is built not by strength but by surrender. The moment you stop fighting for control, the unseen hand begins to lay the planks beneath you. The beauty of trust is that it grows even in darkness. It doesn't require sight, it requires surrender. You can be afraid and still move forward. You can doubt and still obey. Trust doesn't demand perfection. It demands participation. It asks for your willingness, not your certainty. It is the decision to move even when you cannot see the full outcome. And when you do, something changes inside you. Fear loses its authority. You stop needing to know how everything ends because you finally trust the one who writes the ending. There will be moments when the bridge feels too fragile, when the storm is too fierce, when your heart screams that obedience is impossible. But remember this, fear may shake you, but it cannot break what trust has built. The bridge is not made of your strength, it's made of His faithfulness. Every time you step forward, you are not just obeying a command. You are declaring your belief that He is still good, still sovereign, still enough. And so trust becomes more than an act. It becomes a place a place between fear and obedience where faith lives, where courage is born, where heaven and earth meet in the trembling heart of one who dares to believe. The bridge does not remove the storm. It carries you through it. It does not erase fear, it redeems it. And on the other side you will find not just fulfillment, but transformation, because the true reward of obedience is not what you receive. It's who you become while crossing the bridge. Every act of trust, no matter how small, shifts something eternal. Each step forward is a declaration that you believe the unseen hand is still guiding. That silence is not abandonment, that obedience is not loss. And when you finally reach the other side, you'll understand that the bridge was never built by you. It was built for you. Every plank, every step, every moment of trembling faith was divinely placed. What once looked like a void between fear and obedience was actually the stage upon which trust wrote its quiet masterpiece. There are moments when revelation is not shared, but lived. When the divine does not call you to declare something to the world, but to journey through it in silence. The world has trained us to seek witnesses for every miracle, to prove every experience by echoing it aloud. But heaven works differently. Some doors open in secret, and their purpose is not to impress others, but to transform you. The invitation is quiet, personal, sacred. It does not say, show them what you found. It says, walk through, and let what you find remake you. And so, you go, alone, trembling, unsure, but knowing that the step itself is holy. There's a loneliness to divine calling that cannot be explained. When you stand before a door that no one else can see, you must walk forward by faith, not by approval. You cannot take others with you because the revelation was not given to them. They may not understand it, may not support it, may even question your sanity for following it. But that is the beauty of spiritual intimacy. Some paths are too narrow for company. The moment you try to fit the crowd through a door meant for one, you lose the purity of the experience. The solitude of obedience is not isolation, it is refinement. It's where noise becomes silence and silence becomes understanding. The door that God opens for you in private is never meant for public applause. It is not an entry to fame, but to formation. When he says walk alone, it is not rejection, it is trust. It means he believes you can carry what others cannot. Some truths are too fragile for open air. They must grow in the protected quiet of solitude. You do not guard them out of fear, but out of reverence. Because when something sacred is spoken too soon, it loses its strength, like a newborn exposed to the cold before it can breathe. Revelation must be sheltered until it can survive exposure. It's easy to talk about faith in a crowd. It's harder to live it when no one is watching. But that is where faith becomes real, when there is no applause, no validation, no understanding, only the steady whisper that says keep going. Walking through the unseen door is not a performance, it's a pilgrimage. And like all pilgrimages, it will strip you of what is unnecessary. It will ask you to let go of comfort, of recognition, of the need to explain. Because the path ahead requires both hands open, unburdened by the opinions of those left behind. There will be moments when loneliness feels unbearable. You will look back at the familiar and wonder if you made a mistake. But the truth is, solitude is not absence. It is the space where transformation happens. It's where your heart learns to hear without echo, to see without validation, to believe without proof. You begin to understand that what God reveals to you in private is not meant to be proven, but lived. The proof will come later, through the person you become. The world celebrates visibility. It equates significance with recognition, but the divine celebrates secrecy. It hides greatness in quiet hearts, strength in gentle souls, wisdom in hidden obedience. The holiest doors never glitter, they hum quietly with purpose. When you walk through one, you begin to see that heaven's way is not to shout truth, but to incarnate it. To let it take shape through your life. The door is not the destination, it is the transformation. What waits on the other side is not an audience, but an awakening. Every door comes with a test. Will you wait for others to believe it's real, or will you trust the one who told you to walk through it? Faith rarely gives you confirmation from people. It gives you conviction from within. You may not understand what waits beyond the threshold. You may not even know if the ground is solid. But obedience is not about knowing. It's about moving. You step forward not because you see the path, but because you trust the promise. The door opens only for those who walk. The reason some doors are meant for you alone is that God uses solitude to speak without interference. When you're alone, the noise of expectation fades, and you can finally hear the voice that's been guiding you all along. He draws you away from the crowd so that you stop performing faith and start embodying it. Solitude becomes sacred ground. Each step becomes prayer. Each breath becomes agreement. You begin to realize that being unseen by the world is the price of being seen by heaven. In time, the loneliness fades, replaced by peace. You stop yearning for validation because you have found communion. You stop needing others to understand because you finally understand yourself, not as the world defines you, but as the divine refines you. The door you walked through alone becomes a place of rebirth. You emerge quieter, stronger, truer. You no longer chase recognition, you carry revelation. The world will see the fruit later, but you will remember the root. The night you chose to obey when no one was watching. The moment you walked through the unseen door and found God waiting on the other side. And then, one day, you will look back and see the wisdom of the hidden path. You will understand that the door you entered alone was never just for you. It was for those who would one day walk their own unseen paths, needing courage to trust what only they could hear. Your solitude will become their signpost, your obedience their permission. Because when you walk through your door faithfully, you light the way for others without ever needing to say a word. That is the quiet power of divine calling, to walk unseen, yet leave light wherever your feet have been. There are truths too bright to be revealed all at once. Just as dawn does not explode into the sky, but unfolds slowly. Revelation too must ripen in its own time. The light of heaven is never wasted. It is only delayed until hearts are ready to receive it. What is hidden today is not forgotten, it is protected. It waits beneath the surface like fire beneath ashes, waiting for the appointed wind to breathe life into it. We mistake waiting for absence, but the divine knows the rhythm of unveiling. Light, when shown too soon, blinds. When shown in its time, it guides. When God hides something, he is not concealing it from the world's good, but for it. Every silence is storage, every mystery a seed. A seed is buried not to be lost, but to grow. Hiddenness is not death, it's development. What you carry in secret, what you guard in the quiet places of your faith, is being formed into something that will one day break forth with purpose. The night does not mean the sun has vanished. It means the earth is turning toward it again. In the same way, your hidden season is not a pause in divine movement. It's part of it. The waiting is the work. There were moments after that October morning when it seemed as though nothing had changed. The world moved on, ordinary and unshaken. Yet, within that stillness, something sacred was germinating. What was unseen was not inactive. The hidden word, the unspoken revelation, was shaping decisions, refining desires, reordering everything beneath the surface. That is how God's light works. It begins invisibly, transforming the unseen long before it appears to the eyes of others. The most radiant dawns begin in the darkest hours. Faith requires patience with God's timing, because heaven measures readiness, not urgency. You may look around and see others shining, others speaking, others running ahead, and wonder why you're still waiting, still hidden. But do not confuse hiddenness with insignificance. Diamonds are not made in daylight. Oil is not drawn from unbroken ground. Glory is never rushed. The delay of light is mercy. It allows your soul to grow roots strong enough to hold what it's meant to carry. If you were revealed too soon, you would burn out beneath the weight of your own brightness. There is a divine discipline in waiting quietly with what you've been shown. It teaches you to hold truth with humility, to let revelation refine you before it reaches the world. For truth not yet lived is truth not yet ready. God's way is to shape the vessel before he pours the wine. What he hides within you today, he will one day release through you, but not until it has transformed you first. The secret must become substance before it becomes speech. That is why revelation often feels heavy. It's not meant to be announced, but embodied. And when the time comes, it will not arrive with noise or spectacle. It will feel natural, inevitable, as though it had always been waiting for this exact moment. The world will see your light and call it sudden, but you will know it was years in the making. Every quiet act of obedience, every uncelebrated step of faith, every night of uncertainty was part of its preparation. The unseen obedience of yesterday becomes the visible grace of tomorrow. The hidden word becomes a living witness. The private yes becomes a public blessing. Even creation teaches this rhythm. The seed must rot before it rises. The chrysalis must close before the wings unfold. The stars shine only after the sun disappears. Everything sacred is born through concealment. The delay between promise and fulfillment is not a mistake. It's divine incubation. And though you may ache for revelation to come sooner, you must remember light is not late, it is precise. It arrives exactly when darkness has finished its work. So hold fast to your hidden things. Guard your revelations as treasures, not secrets. Nurture them with prayer, not proclamation. The time will come when silence gives way to song, when what you carried in private becomes the light others need in public. You will not need to announce it, your life will. The glow of quiet faith will speak louder than any words you could have said before, and those who once doubted your stillness will one day find guidance in the glow it left behind. Because in the end, this is how heaven works. It hides what is holy until it is ready to heal. It conceals not to deny, but to reveal in perfection. What is hidden today is not lost. It is gathering strength. What you cannot yet share is learning to shine. And one day, in a moment you will not expect but will recognize completely, the hidden will break open, the light will pour out, and the world will be illuminated by what you once carried alone in the dark.